Welcome to Whiskey Wednesday, where we talk about the internet's most important topics.
So grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy today's topic. We have a good one for you. The first thing we're going to get to, though, is our whiskey. This is Uncle Nearest, 1856, and this has a super cool story to it. I love bourbons, whiskeys. In this case, it's not a bourbon. This is a Tennessee whiskey that has a cool story. I'll let you go ahead and pour and sniff and do all your things as I tell a story.
I'm doing all my things.
So, Uncle Nearest, his name is Nathan Green. Nathan Nearest Green is the first African American distiller, and
Oh, that's cool.
and so they called him Uncle Nearest, and he was a slave for a guy named Dan Call, and Dan Call had the kind of a side hustle with, doing distillery and making whiskey, and he had his slave Nathan Green doing distilling for him. So I'm gonna really compact this. I highly recommend going to their website. There's like a 10-minute video. It's super fascinating, really well done, all about the story. So Dan Call has a friend whose son wanted to do some summer work or something, right?
Yeah.
So Dan lets this boy go and work, and ends up getting mentored by Uncle Nearest Green, and that boy, I'm gonna butcher this entire amazing story and just get to the point, which is the boy would eventually be who's known as Jack Daniels.
Oh, okay.
So
Uncle Nearest, he's a slave. Yeah.
So he ends up, like, to tell a little more about the story. So he ends up being freed, ends up being the master distiller for Jack Daniels before Jack Daniels was a brand.
Okay.
He
mentored Jack.
This boy had bought a distillery,
Okay.
had Uncle Nearest come and be his master distiller and stuff, and then ends up getting his own distillery another new distillery or something later, and that brand ends up being known as Jack Daniels.
That's pretty cool.
It's an amazing story, and so the whole if you go back and watch the Jack Daniels episode that we did, we talked about how Jack Daniels, I may have even said then, was the first. I can't remember if I said this or not.
Yeah.
But Jack Daniels does the charcoal filtering, right? You remember us?
I remember that,
talking
yeah.
about that. So that actually comes from Uncle Nearest was the first.
Uncle Nearest was the first to do
He was
that.
the first one. He is the first. They credit him, and there's been a lot of historians have done a lot of research about this. Uncle Nearest is the first distiller in Tennessee.
Wow.
And yeah, just amazing backstory about
cool.
Where Tennessee whiskey has come from, about the legacy that Uncle Nearest has, and yeah. So then there's this, and it's one of my favorites. It's a pretty reasonably priced bottle. It's nothing crazy, and yeah, it's really good. So
Yeah, that's fascinating,
Think
man.
about this.
Ooh. I like it. Sweet.
So it's 100 proof. It has won a ton of awards. They have a small batch version too that I've had. I think I actually like this maybe a little more than I had one taste of it in the middle of some other things I was eating that day. So I didn't have a great flavor profile, but I really like this one a lot.
It's got a good sweet. It's got a good spice. I like the spice that comes out. It's not too strong
I
for
wish I
me.
knew the mash bill of it. I'd be curious
Yeah.
to see what
Like it's
the
corn
breakdown is.
wheat breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it has some corn.
Oh yeah.
I would say it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's very good.
It's not real oaky. So that's one thing.
Really?
I'm not
I
getting
taste-
a bunch of oak today.
So the charcoal they use to filter is it's maple. And so you get a little different flavor profile from that. But then, I taste it. It's not like a mouthful of oak, but I definitely taste.
Yeah. I would say it's less than average on oak. I would say it's more than average on spice. Yeah, I like this. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like this one a lot.
I would say this is a 8.5 for me.
Wow.
It's pretty good. It's a totally different flavor profile than some of the other ones.
What was the one we had last week? You rated it like a 6. And
Yeah.
It
wasn't very good.
Yeah.
It was just Four Roses.
yeah, Four Roses single batch.
I like this better than Four Roses.
Single barrel.
Yeah. No, I mean, I recognize that maybe they're very different, but my personal taste, this hits the spot in a totally different way than, say, 1776 does, where it's very oaky. This is a sweet spice for me instead of a soothing oak, which is different.
Interesting.
But I think it's cool, the story.
Yeah, the story's
behind
amazing.
it. It's like someone who's taken something that's horrible in life and turned it into something good under their own power, too. Not like someone handed it to him. He worked for that.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
And I don't have a whole lot of Tennessee whiskeys, but this is one that I've finished a couple of these bottles. I always go back and get another one. So for me, this clearly is one that I always have on my shelf.
Would buy again.
I would buy again. Because
Cool.
I have.
Because he has.
Very good. All right, so today we have a topic that we've talked about wanting to get into before.
Yeah.
When we talked about it, we do very hesitantly because we realize this is a very hot topic, which isn't the problem. We don't mind talking about hot topics. However, this is such a huge topic that there's no way in the 15 minutes that we're going to try to keep this section that we're going to be able to really. We're not going to be solving the world's problems here.
No.
With this episode, but I think it is important for us to vocalize where we stand on
Quite the lead up.
this, which is we are a couple weeks after the school shooting in Texas.
Which was very sad.
Is awful.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks before that, there was another school shooting.
Seems like one's happening
and it's just
every few months.
It is awful, horrendous. My wife is a teacher, and she actually was in a school with an active shooter before. I got a call from my wife saying that, hey, I'm not sure if you've seen what's on the news. I'm okay, but I'm barricaded in a room. I've been on the other side of my spouse
I remember that.
being in a school with an active shooter. Ended up the kid ended up just shooting himself after being confronted. Or I can't remember exactly, but he ended up shooting himself. So there were nobody.
That was terrible.
There was no one else hurt, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I have kids in school. This is a very near and dear topic to me, and having kids, but also a wife as a teacher. So I want to start off by saying, yes, we are gun people. We work in the gun industry.
Right.
But we also feel, if you're watching this and you are not a gun person, which I would love to try to get non-gun people watching this. If you're watching this and you think there's somebody who might be willing to listen to this conversation and our points, please send this to them. The first thing I wanted to get out there is that we agree that something needs to happen to stop these shootings.
Absolutely.
100%.
We can't let it continue in the direction in which it's continuing.
No, we want things to be done as well. And this is such a huge topic. We spent a couple hours. We kind of got into this.
We've discussed this fully and in-depthly.
When we were talking about what we're going to get into today, we had a much longer conversation about. There's so many layers to this topic and issues that are out there that are playing into this phenomenon, if you want to say. There's so much there's so much out there.
Yeah.
And we could touch on. We could do months and do 2 hour long videos each one and still not solve anything, right?
So the goal of this video, instead of hitting on conservatives versus liberals or what this person wants to do with this person, we wanted to provide some solutions, right?
Yeah.
And where our heart lies is that we want to create solutions that take effect now and not 10 years from now. Because there's plenty of solutions, and we talked about these, that were long-term solutions.
We truly believe in this. Maybe this is a whole nother episode, but I truly believe there are things that need to change that if we change now, we won't start seeing effects for
Right.
Until a decade down the road. I think there is a deterioration of morals and family system and all these things that are, again, pieces to a larger problem puzzle.
Yeah.
That those aren't fast changes. We can't say, hey, family system needs to change and we need to medicate less and just all this stuff.
Try and do those solutions. The results happen in 10 years.
Right.
So we're given, what, three solutions?
And just like how our counterpart that is fighting for gun control legislation wants things done now, and I agree with them. I want things to be done now too.
Yeah.
But I want things to be done that we believe will actually change outcome
Right.
and reduce these horrific things from happening before, again. And so these, I have three things here. Three things that, again, are a drop in the bucket. But three things that we can do now. Well, I'll put it this way. One thing that we can do right now.
Right now.
And two things that we should be fighting for that could start now.
Yeah.
If the correct people in power are willing to do these things. Right? Okay.
Yeah. Let's just get into it.
So let's get into it. So the first thing is, let's protect what needs to be protected.
Right.
We have armed guards. If you go to a concert, there's armed guards at a concert. Airports.
The mall. Where else?
I mean, government buildings. There's all.
The governor. Yeah.
If you go to a sports game, there are armed people with a wand, right? So
I know bars that have armed security because they want their people to feel safe in it.
Right. So clearly, we as a country are willing to make the expense and do what we need to do to protect those people and those assets. However, for some reason, a lot of states aren't willing to even consider taking measures to put armed, trained people in the school. And there's two levels to this. One is arming teachers, and I realize this is a very hot topic. Ohio is actually doing things to encourage school systems to consider it. It's not a mandatory thing, and even the schools who do want to adopt this, it's not a mandatory thing for all the teachers. This is still a voluntary thing with training. But arming teachers, putting people already in the school who are able to defend themselves if something happens, not have to wait minutes or hours for help to come.
It's there.
Then there is at least the opportunity for defense to happen sooner. And then the other level with this is an armed team of people.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
There's layers. One thing I like about the teachers, recently we saw, I don't know what school shooting this was, but like the police had entered and were waiting. And I guess they waited there, for a while, right? One thing I like about armed teachers over just having the police respond is there's a severe level of fear when you're going to track down somebody who's shooting people actively. And we've never encountered that in our life. But anytime you have to work up the courage to go in and save people versus saving people in the fear for your own life, teachers are there in the situation. There is no waiting 15 minutes to see if more people come to help you. You're there. You're going to take care of the situation at hand because it's fight, right? Your life is on the line. And you care about your students, and you are in the situation. That's why I like armed teachers, because they're there.
Yep.
The moment they hear gunshots, once the shock wears off that somebody's shooting up a school, they're going to go, okay, I got to protect myself. That's the first thought. I got to protect my kids.
Yep.
That's the second thought. And they're in the school building. And so I think that's why the teachers being armed is such a good idea. Now, there's some cons to that, but... I've
talked to my wife about this, and this is a whole other topic, and frankly, I'm not going to say anything more on this. I would actually like to have our friend Andrew in.
Oh, that's a great idea.
For an episode, who's actually one of the people who is actually down in Columbus, a week after the last shooting. It just happened to be that way, but he was down there meeting with the mayor and pitching the FASTER program,
Right.
which trains teachers and stuff. I would like to have Andrew in to talk more in depth with that. So we're going to leave that one
That'd
there.
be
and
a
we're gonna come
wonderful
back to
idea.
that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good segue there. You had mentioned about how law enforcement come into the building and then
Wait.
and they're waiting. So
Right.
do you want to pitch number 2?
What's number 2? Oh, yeah. Number 2 is train the law enforcement better.
Yeah.
Now, that's such a broad statement.
It's very broad.
Train law enforcement better. What does that mean? Well, we're friends with a lot of police officers, and we've gone to a lot of shooting classes and training courses. And unfortunately, some of the best shooters and some of the worst shooters have been law enforcement. And it all depends on how much they take the initiative to learn to train. The people who want to be better in that aspect, they're very good shooters. The people who don't want to be better, they slack off and they aren't good shooters. And I understand that as a part of your law enforcement job, shooting is a teensy amount. You know, it's all people skills and documenting and making sure you're paying attention and all that stuff. But it's also one of the few things that are life and death. And so the consequences are high, even though the frequency is very low. And if you look at compared to a civilian, it's very high. But training on the things that have high consequences, in my opinion, is important. That's why I conceal carry, because I know that the consequences of not having that is very high. And it'd be great to implement programs where law enforcement learn to respond to active shooters in locations such as that. And I know that that costs a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money as a society. And we have the money to spend as long as we put it in the right place.
Yeah, it's. I think. I mean, I think you nailed a lot of what I was going to say. So I agree. I think we need. I think. So if these are three things that we can do, what can we do about this? We can contact our state representatives. We can contact our schools. We can contact
Absolutely.
our law enforcement, our chief, and those things, and at least voice our opinion that we are for these things, right? So we can't make any of these things. These first two things we can't. Make happen.
There are training programs for law enforcement to react to shooters, and if you got the cash, I'm sure you call up the chief of your police or your local area and be like, "Hey, I'll pay for this." You can make that happen. Probably.
Maybe, and I know that they're, we aren't law enforcement, so we don't know, and each town's different, training time and what's allotted for ammo and all those things. At some point, it's probably going to come down to you as a police officer to make that choice that you are going to take the time and expense to do that. But I think, what can we do personally? I think we can contact our representatives, we can contact our schools, and we can contact our law enforcement to let them know that we are for these things.
Yeah.
And even just offer, what can we do to help these things happen? Is it making another phone call? Is it writing another letter? What can we do in these first 2 points to encourage our school systems and our leaders to make these decisions? Right. So that's those are two things that we can do right now to help our leaders make decisions that they could enact things right now.
Calling up your community service members is literally voting with your cell phone, right? If 2,000 people call up the mayor of their town and say, "Hey, we need to make this happen," he's going to say, "There's a severe amount of people looking. It's a large amount of people thinking this is the right way to do it. I need to look into this," and that's the whole point in
that should be
being vocal in your communities.
Yeah. All right. So my third point is something that we as gun owners, and you as a gun owner, can do, and I kind of have 3 points underneath this one, which is be responsible gun owners. And I realize that this is getting thrown out there a lot at us by anti-gun people, that we're being accused that we're not being responsible gun owners. Well, I think we need to take a moment to ask ourselves, am I being a responsible gun owner? If, all right, so my first point under this is carry and be trained.
Boom.
Right? We are pro concealed carry, we are pro carry, we are pro training, and pro defending ourselves and our families and loved ones. So the first thing we can do is be armed and be prepared to act if we need to.
Yeah.
That's the first one, right? Second one is when we have firearms at home, we need to keep them safe. We need to keep them in a safe condition. We need to keep them locked if we're not using them. If they're not in reach. I have strategically placed guns in my house, but guess what? Each of them are in a locked position in a safe that I can get into quickly. I trust my kids 100%. My kids know in and out. They know gun safety.
Yeah.
They know what to do. They aren't afraid of guns. They respect them. However, I'm not leaving loaded guns just sitting out willy-nilly, not just because of them, but because of somebody else trying to come into my house. The largest, and we got into some of these stats, or we talked about this a few episodes ago, but the largest percentage of guns used in homicides and things are stolen. Stolen out of cars, stolen out of homes. So we need to make sure that we are being responsible with these firearms when they're not on our bodies. They need to be somewhere that is safe so that they can't be taken and used. And I feel like in a lot of these school shootings, I feel like a lot of times it's the kids stole their parents' gun.
It can be, yeah.
Right. So, and again, this is why, this is one of the things that anti-gun legislation is trying to do, which they're trying to legislate, keep your guns in safes and stuff like that. I don't like that, because how do you, if you're going to make that law, how do you enforce that law? You have to come into people's homes,
right,
to find out what they're doing. I'm not a big fan.
This is a personal responsibility thing, right? And this is harsh to say, but if your child steals your gun and shoots up their school, that's on you, because you didn't lock up your gun. And if you locked up your gun and somehow they're magically able to get through that because they're just way more smart than you are, then you've taken the precautions. But you have a responsibility as a parent to protect your child, to mentor your child, and to guide your child in the right direction. And unfortunately, people who don't lock their firearms up when they do have children are taking a risk. And your kids, like Greg's kids, may be like angels. But Greg knows that he doesn't read his kid's mind.
Right.
And you don't read your kid's mind either. And sometimes children hide things from their parents. I know I did as a kid. So
what?
So, you may not be in the know. So take the extra precaution, lock your guns up, put them in a safe location. Make sure you can still get to them, because otherwise they're useless. And that's definitely going to have a massive effect if we can make this a cultural thing to where people understand the dangers of having kids around firearms.
We should be making it harder for these kids to get guns. They shouldn't.
Right. Or bad guys.
They shouldn't have easy access.
It's not just children.
No.
It's bad people
Bad
who
people
are willing
too,
to break the law to get a hold of your gun.
Right.
And the struggle that I have is always this, like, keeping your guns handy over keeping them locked up. And, where's that balance? Bad people are going to do bad things, regardless of if they have a gun or not, right? But making it more difficult for them, bad people are lazy sometimes too, right? So if you make it difficult enough for them to get a hold of a gun, and by being a responsible gun owner, one, you've done your part to help make the community safer. I think that's a great thing. But also, you've given them time to think about their actions, and there's a lot of other stuff we can go into and about them thinking about their actions, but the goal here is for you to be responsible.
Yeah, and then, I agree. The last thing under this, which we've already touched on a little bit, which is also part of being a responsible gun owner is being active in elections and contacting your representatives. We need to be vocal. And unfortunately, I see comments a lot from gun owners saying, I don't have to do a thing because this is my constitutional right and I'm either not going to do what they want or I'm going to do what I want. And
it's their God-given right.
It is, but we also need you in the legal side of things, right? So being a responsible gun owner is also being a vocal gun owner in a responsible manner, right? So when we make those calls, when we write those letters and emails, being respectful but being direct is important part of our responsibility in this country. As you know, things are not trying. Our governments are not trying to loosen gun laws. They're only trying to tighten gun laws.
Restrict them.
So we need to be more vocal as they try to be more restrictive.
And remember, just because something's your God-given right doesn't mean someone's not going to try and take it from you. And if you are like me and you would never let that happen, you got to also think about this. Just because they can't take it from you because you're not willing to give up your guns doesn't mean your children or your children's children won't be, because they'll have grown up in a society where it's more normal to be that way. And so, for the sake of your great-grandchildren, that's why you need to call your representatives. And it's putting off the inevitable, which is governments go corrupt. But you can make a difference, especially for your children. I think that's important.
Yeah. So, kind of wrap this up a little bit. We realize this is just to barely put a scratch into the enormity of this topic. But these are things that we can do right now to move towards a better situation, and without giving up rights and without giving up the negative things that can happen down the road if we give up those rights now. That is potentially a whole other podcast or YouTube video. We thought about getting into all kinds of things, but really we just wanted to focus on two things. One is letting you know, again, if you're watching this and you're not a gun owner and maybe even you're pro gun rights, just know we are with you. We want things to we hate this and we want things to change as well. Again, we just have two very different ways of going about it.
Yep.
And we're going to fight for our kids the best way that we know how, and respectively, I know you're going to do the same thing.
Yep.
But also, as gun rights, as pro-gun people, speaking largely to you guys on this, we need to make sure that we are doing what we can right now to make a change for not only the kids, but for our future kids.
Yep. And normally we would ask for you to like and subscribe, and whereas that's still important, whatever. What we really ask for you to do with this video is to share it with somebody who this will affect, or at least make think. I think we talked about what kind of video we wanted to make for a very long time, and we want to help the community, and so that's why we chose to make this video. So in the comments, if you want to keep us, want us to keep making videos of this content structure, let us know. But more importantly, send this to somebody who you care about and who you think might want to listen to it.
Yep. Guys, thank you so much. We appreciate you watching, and we appreciate your support.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Whew.